teachers have come to give you some Dhamma. So don't try and brush them away. They're teachers. They're teaching you about, just irritation and pain and letting go. So if you have pain, it's an ajahn. Ajahn pain has come to teach you Dhamma. So listen to it. However, if it gets to the point that it becomes intolerable, then move compassionately. Because if you haven't got peace, you can't listen to the Dhamma. If all you're doing is enduring because the pain is too much, you haven't got the possibility to understand it. So leave it alone. Or rather, change your posture very softly. When you're changing your posture because the pain is a bit too much, you can't really investigate it peacefully anymore. It's like pushing the pause button on your meditation. You just change your posture, change your legs or move your back very gently, slowly, mindfully. And when you're in the new position, comfortable, then you take your finger off the pause button and you're back where you were just before you change your posture. You don't lose any peace in your meditation. All you lose is the pain. And that's compassion. Please remember that the Buddha spent 6 years before he was a Buddha working with pain. Not eating, standing still, all those ascetic practices he did for 6 years. And what did he learn from that? The only thing he learned from that is never to do such stupid things again. It was called Attagila Yoga, which literally means like practices which tire you, which take away all your energy. And that's called working too much with pain. So the best thing is actually to sit on a chair. Make it comfortable. Even the Buddha collected grass before he sat under the Bodhi tree. He made it comfortable without being too indulgent. So that's what to do with pain. If at all possible, get a mat under your legs, get a cushion, whatever it is, to get yourself nice and comfortable. Don't sit too long. I remember one of my fellow monks, he's the abbot of one of our monasteries, when he was young he decided to sit through pain. His knees were really aching. He said, right, this is it, I'm going to sit through it. He needed 2 knee operations afterwards. That's stupid. So don't do that. You've got enough pain anyway, without having to look for it. Next question. Since there are 2 types of meditation, samatha and vipassana, to enlightenment, how does Pure Land recitation help in attaining enlightenment? There is only one type of meditation, not samatha, not vipassana. I didn't tell this story. This is from the texts. This is a very good simile taught by the Buddha himself. It's in the Samyutta Nikaya. It's about the king, the emperor, who had a son. He knew that one day the son would take over the empire. So he wanted to teach his son how to do the job of being an emperor. So there's so much you can do just in theory. The best way of learning is in practice, on-the-job training. So he decided to send his son, the prince, to one of the border regions and give his son full autonomy, full power over that region which was part of his empire, so that he could learn by his mistakes. He went there with 5 of his friends. After a year or so, the head people of the villages, the townspeople, their representatives, sent a delegation to the emperor to complain. They said, your son, the prince, is not governing properly. All he's doing is having party after party, celebration after celebration. He's doing no work. It's the same that some of you might send your children to Perth to go to university, and it might be the first time your son or daughter has been away from home. And instead of studying, party, party, party. Now that's what he was doing. It's just young people. That's just what they do. The first time out of the palace, out of the father's command, they were messing around. So the emperor realized he had to send somebody to teach his son about the duties of being an emperor. It's not just all fun and games. You have to do the work of an emperor as well. So he got his wisest of ministers and said to the minister, please go to that kingdom and just instruct my son about the duties. And the wise minister said, Sire, if you send me alone, I'm afraid your son won't listen to me. Can I please take along with me one of your fiercest of warriors, a battle-hardened general, one of the leaders of your army? I want to take him with me as well, because I think together with the seasoned general and with the wise minister, I think then we can teach your child how to run a kingdom. And the emperor said, yeah, great idea, off you go. So they went as a pair, the fierce general and the wise minister. When they got to that border kingdom, when they got to the capital city, when they went into the palace, sure enough, there was a big party going on. And when they tried to get into the room where the party was being held, they were stopped by the prince's 5 friends. They said, who are you? He said, this is the fierce general, this is the wise minister. We've come from the prince's father, the emperor, to instruct, your prince. And the 5 Hindus says, shove off. This is not your kingdom. We don't care about the emperor. Our prince is ruler of this kingdom. Get lost. The 5 friends said to the wise minister. At which the fierce general got out his sword. And he flashed his sword in front of the noses of these 5 friends. And in a few flashes, those 5 friends had run away and disappeared. And so the 2 of them, the fierce general and the wise minister, could actually go into the room where the party was being held. Of course, when they saw these 2 gatecrashers come in, everybody stopped. And the prince says, who are you? Get out. And the wise minister said, Sire, I've come from your father, the emperor. I'm one of the wisest of his ministers, and I've come to teach you about your responsibilities. He said, I don't care about my father, my responsibilities. He gave this kingdom to me. We're having a party. Get out of here. The prince would not listen to the wise minister. So once again, the fierce general got out his sword, and he grabbed the prince by the hair, put the sword to his throat, and said, I am one of the generals from your father's army. Listen to this minister. And with the sword to the young man's throat, the prince said, I'm listening. And with the general holding the sword to the prince's throat, keeping him absolutely still, the wise minister could actually teach the prince the duties and responsibilities. The prince heard, understood, and from that time on, he did the job of a viceroy in this kingdom. He also had his parties, but not so many, because a prince is allowed to enjoy himself, but he did the work. And he learned from that experience how to rule a small state, and eventually in good time he took over the whole empire and became a great emperor. Now that story was told by the Buddha. And the meaning of that story is this. The emperor, the Buddha said, was me, the Buddha. The prince was my disciples. He said, you go off to look after your own kingdom, your mind and your body. But when you're left on your own, you have too many parties. You don't do your duties. So you need someone to teach you. So the Buddha sent his fierce general and wise minister. The fierce general was called Samatha. The wise minister was called Vipassana. They journeyed together to the center of your kingdom, your mind. Vipassana was not enough, because as soon as Vipassana came in, it met your 5 hindrances, your 5 friends. And wisdom was not enough to dispel those 5 hindrances. So the general took out the sword of samadhi, flashed it in front of the 5 hindrances, and the 5 hindrances, they just disappear very quickly, which allows the wise minister to go right up to the prince, the citta, the mind. But even then, insight, wisdom cannot be good enough to teach your mind. You need samatha, holding it by the throat, as it were, to keep your mind absolutely still. And then it listens. And once holding the mind still with samatha, instructing it with insight, there you learn Dhamma. There you become enlightened. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy yourself anymore. In fact, you enjoy yourself even more, but you also do your duties. And then you take over the empire which the Buddha founded. You too become an arahat to be able to teach and serve in the world, as well as enjoying the bliss of your own mind. The simile of the Buddha about how insight and calm all work together. So what is Pure Land recitation? How can that help in attaining enlightenment? How that can help in attaining enlightenment is give inspiration and joy and happiness. I've already mentioned it's from happiness that the mind becomes peaceful and concentrated. By repetition again and again, you have to have present moment awareness. You have silence except for the recitation. That's all you can hear. It's the recitation over and over again. It's like a mantra. It leads to samadhi. And quite naturally, the time should come, if you do this properly, where the recitation has done its job. And the words disappear as you go into a very peaceful, still state. Chanting, especially recitation, is one of the time-honored ways of getting into samadhi. Just like the Buddho chant, it stills the mind enough for you to get into samadhi. But obviously that you all know that by doing Pure Land, you can't just do the chanting, you have to do charity, you have to do good karma, you have to keep precepts as well. That's part of it. And which means, and I'll mention this later on when I talk about the jhanas, that when you are doing this chanting, if you've got a foundation of good karma, if you've got a foundation of compassionate work, and also precepts, you find when you do become still, that nimitta, that mind which comes up, is absolutely brilliant and beautiful. It takes you into samadhi. From samadhi you see things as they truly are, you become enlightened. It's just starting the process, starting the ball rolling, which is the hard part. Once the ball is rolling, the process is started, it leads inexorably to Nibbana. That's how it works. So any questions about that? Okay, the next question. Dear Ajahn, normally it is not difficult to detect greed and hatred when they arise. However, how to detect delusion, since we are all deluded in a certain degree? Thank you. Actually, it's not easy to see greed and hatred. You can see the gross forms of greed and hatred, but the refined forms are very difficult to see. And it's the refined forms, they're the ones which keep you getting reborn. Many people can give up sex and become celibate. Many people can actually not be interested in food or TVs. But how many of you can give up greed to your body and your senses? You are concerned with your body and its comfort. You are so concerned with seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, you will not let them disappear. A sign that you are detached, you've given up greed, craving, grasping for this body and its senses, is your ability to let it go, to put it down. And the only way you can test that you have the ability to let go of the five senses and the body is your ability to attain a jhana. What stands between you and the jhana is your attachment, your greed for the five sense world and the body. This is karma loka, is the world of the five senses, is the world of a body. When you've abandoned that greed, then there's nothing between you and jhana. Temporarily abandoning it, you get into jhanas. Fully abandoning it, you're an anagami, a non-returner. Same with ill will, hatred. Sometimes we think, you know what hatred when you get angry at somebody, but do you know the anger at yourself? And that is the most difficult thing to overcome. Most people in our world have got ill will towards themselves. It's called guilt. And it sometimes is very refined. You've done something you rather didn't. And because of that, you've got an inherent need to punish yourself. And I've mentioned this earlier. People hate themselves so much that they're willing to have themselves punished by going to a lower realm after they die. They think they deserve to go to hell. It's incredible just how deep that is inside your psychology. Self-hatred is deeper than you think. There was one nun who was staying at my monastery a couple of years ago, a Western nun. She started to get deep meditation. She's got the nimitta. She was about to enter a jhana. She couldn't go in. She saw what the problem was. She reported to me that even though the door to jhana was fully open to her, she wouldn't go in because she thought she did not deserve such happiness. It's a powerful insight she had, and it's a common problem. You're afraid of that happiness because you think you don't deserve it. It's called ill will. Each one of you deserve all the happiness in the world. You don't deserve the bliss of Nibbana. You deserve the ecstasy of jhanas. You deserve it. It's your birthright. So don't be convinced by your mistakes and failures in life so far that you don't deserve it. You do. You deserve forgiveness. Every one of you deserves that. Doesn't matter what you've done. You've heard me say this yesterday. I give you forgiveness in the past, present and the future. So whatever you do, even in the future, you already have my forgiveness. I give you a blank check. You can do whatever you like, and I will always be your friend. If you go and convert to Christianity, I will always be your friend. If you come along and torture me, I will still be your friend. I've already given you forgiveness no matter what you ever do. Isn't that wonderful? It gives you freedom. So can you give yourself that freedom? Isn't freedom what Nibbana is all about? The taste of freedom, liberation. So, look into your ill will. It's more deep than you think. That's why you have got delusion. Whoever asked that question when they said it's not difficult to detect greed and hatred, that statement is deluded. It is difficult to detect. And it's the stuff you can't detect. That's the problem. So if you actually see the greed and the hatred, the desire and ill will, then your delusion is getting less and less. And how you overcome the delusion, when you start experiencing mindfulness getting more and more powerful, you understand why you're deluded. Because you're not still enough. Things go past too quickly. Like I was deluded thinking I knew that hillside in my monastery. I had to slow down to realize how wrong I was. When you slow down, you see much more. And you are deluded in so many other respects. Thinking that you own your family. Every time you say, that's my mother, that's my father, that's my child. It is not your child. They came into this life from their previous life with their own karma. That's got nothing to do with you. It's like rent a car. It's like rent a son, rent a daughter. That's all it is. They didn't belong to you beforehand. They won't belong to you afterwards. You just have them for a short time. So it's not your son, it's not your daughters. But every time we delude to think, that's my son, that's my daughter. That's my wife, that's my husband. It's not. You share your lives for a while. And then there's always a parting, either death or divorce, one of the two. And there's your parents. They're not your father, your mother. In the previous life, they could have been your sister, they could have been your friend, they could have been your child. If you see many, many lives, how can you say that person's my mother? Or that's my father? When they've been a friend, a sister, a wife, a husband, who knows? So, delusion says it's mine. It's not even your body. Delusion said it's my body, that I am aching, that I am sick. It's just a body being sick, that's all. Where did your body come from? It just came from the earth. That's sometimes people ask you, they used to ask Ajahn Chah, where are you from? He said, my mother's womb.